this topic actually came from a support group, and we are always asking you on these programs and calls, tell us what it is that you need. Tell us what it is that we haven't talked about yet. And somebody brought this up and said specifically, in fact, the words were, but I made a promise. I made a promise that I would never place my loved one. And I've got a lot of grief and heartache from that. So you see the name of our program there, I Made a Promise, how to cope with the guilt and heartbreak when you break the promise. So there's actually some research about this out there, not near as much as I thought I would find, but there's a little bit out there as I've been looking for it the last few days as I've been putting this together. So I want us to start through this. Those of you who may be new to our programs here, I am Holly Glover, and I am the Director of Education. Jamie's also on. She's the VP of Education. I'm a licensed professional counselor. So this particular program, I'm going to have my counselor's hat on. So you may hear some of those terms where you go, that sounds like something I may have heard in counseling before, because that's when we're talking about guilt. So let's look at the fact that we did make the promise. And when we did make that promise, we based it on the information that we had at the time, because we could not see into the future. We still cannot see into the future. Our loved one at that time that we made that promise was not in the same place that they are in right now. They may have been active, they may have been healthy, and they may have been of sound mind when we made that promise. I hear that promise get made. I've done paperwork with people before, and let's say that it's adult children who are placing their parent or parents, and they may even look at each other and go, don't you ever put me in a nursing home. Oh, I promise I never will. Well, that's easy to do whenever you're sitting there and you're completely of sound mind and there's nothing going on with you and you don't have any type of anything physically wrong or anything going on. That's an easy promise to make. We had no way of knowing where the disease was going to go and where it was going to take them or where it was going to take us. Because as every one of us on this call knows, because we love somebody or have loved someone who has dementia, we probably had no idea the journey it was going to take us on. So on this next slide, those of you that can see the screen, and we will be sending you these slides, and you'll see me keep looking to the side because I've got two screens here in front of me. When we made that promise, we absolutely had the best of intentions and we meant what we said, and our promise was in good faith. We meant it. So you can see where we're headed with this about beating ourselves up over having to break that promise. We meant it when we said it. And we may have truly thought that we could keep them at home because we thought, you know what, eventually I'll bring in some help. I'll use an adult day program. I'll get the neighbors, I'll get the kids, I'll get the church. We'll be able to do this. And most of the time that does buy you some time, and you are able to do it for a little bit longer by using some help. But you may have had no idea how expensive hourly healthcare help was going to be, or how expensive an adult day program cost was going to be. Hourly, when you look at hiring somebody, you could get an individual to come in for $13 to $15, and then programs, professional companies go all the way up to $24, $25 an hour. You start doing $24 an hour for very many hours a day, and you're at the cost of placement where you could be placing them for that much. Adult day programs usually start about $85 to $95 per day. And then some of them go up from there, depending on what it is that you're needing, because they may offer something like a shower for an additional fee, or where they can get their hair done for an additional fee, or the podiatrist come in for an additional fee. But you may not have had any idea how expensive this was going to be. You also may have been in denial. I'm going to say may have been, even though we know that's one of those steps of grief that we all go through, that they would ever really get that bad. Because right now, when we made that promise, it looked like it was going to be doable. And our hope and our prayer was that, well, they'll never really be that bad. We'll be able to take care of that. So we may have been dealing with some denial in ourselves whenever we made that promise. We did make the decision that we had to make out of love for them. And most of us, when we hear that word nursing home, or when we made that word promise, we thought of the nursing home that many of you probably just thought of when I said that word, because most of us have that image from a long time ago of nursing home. People lined up in the hallways, the smell, the bright lights, the white, very institutionalized is what it was. And that was from decades ago. And you may have even had someone in a place like that. And that may have been when you made the promise to a parent. You may have been visiting a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle and went, oh, I promise I would never put you any place like this. Most of the time, that was before there were regulations that were put into place that are there to protect residents. And that is not where you wanted to be. It is where you promised your loved one that you would not put them, and you did not put them there. Those of you who have place, you did not put them in that place. We also did not realize the strain that caregiving would put on our other relationships. So if you are an adult child taking care of a parent, many times we will start to neglect our spouse because we are still taking care of our parent, and we've still got children, even if they are adult children, and the spouse starts to get left out. If we're taking care of a spouse, we may start to neglect our children or our grandchildren. I've had people say on our support group calls, I don't remember the last time I was able to be, and it's before the COVID stuff, I can't remember the last time I went to one of my grandkids' ball games, or I got to be with or see my family. So we had no idea the stress and the strain that it would put on our families, our jobs, if we still work, because we were trying to be a full-time, hands-on caregiver. So this is one of the most important things I want us to get out of this. When we made that promise, we based it on the facts and the beliefs that we had at the time, because we could not see into the future. But things change with a progressive terminal disease, and we know all dementias are progressive and all dementias are terminal. And no matter how much we hate having to make the hard decision, life got in the way and life continued to go on. So let's talk about, we made the promise, but now how to cope with the guilt and the heartbreak of making that promise. And one of the things we have to do, and I caught myself yesterday, I kind of came up with about 6 different things for us to do, and I just kept being able to add to some of these. And the first one is about being gentle with ourselves. We cannot change the level of care that our loved one requires. And most of the time, they get to the point that we cannot provide that level of care on our own without it affecting us in a way that we may become one of those statistics where that caregiver passes away before the patient passes away. 68% of the time, we're going to lose the caregiver before we lose the patient because of stress, because of just not taking care of ourselves anymore. We talked about this a lot on our support group yesterday. Having just recently lost a member of our support group. So making sure that we are being gentle with ourselves. You have done the best that you can, and it is, and it always has been enough. Talk to yourself as you would talk to a close friend. Don't allow your self-talk to bring on unnecessary and needless guilt, because we will talk to ourselves in a way that we would never talk to another person. Accept your humanity without shame and stop that voice in your head. You do have the power to do that. When you call it what it is, and that's going to be on another one coming up, when we name feelings, then we can tame feelings. When we name emotions, then we can have control over them. And we can catch those voices as they start coming in our head, beating us up, and we can stop them. And I'm telling you, while I was writing this, I had a Bible verse come to my mind, and I looked up, and I wish y'all could see my wall in front of me because it's taped on my wall. And I went, there's some divine intervention. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, I am not ruled by fear. And that's what kept coming over me, was just that fear. So another thing, remind yourself that you honored the spirit in which you made the promise, even though you had to break it. You still honored the spirit in which you made the promise. You made that promise at a time and in a place that was very different from the reality of the day that you had to break the promise, because you made it having no idea where that disease was going to go. You did not abandon your loved one. You took care of them in the best way that you knew how. You could not allow their well-being to be unsafe or unsustainable for either of you. The reality is you vowed to provide them with the best possible care in a comfortable setting. You are making sure they are properly cared for, and that is what caregiving is all about. I am certain that those of you on this call who have placed your loved one did not just pick a place out of the phone book and go put them there. You did your research. In fact, that may be my next one. Yes, you've got to trust that decision that you made. Trust yourself. You did your research and you did not make a rushed decision. You educated yourself and you learned what you needed to know to make the best choice for you and your loved one, and you made it. So at this point, you can't second guess yourself. You go with, I made that decision. It was the right decision. And that's where you continue to educate yourself. You get on programs like this, you get in a support group, you talk to other people, and you realize sometimes on the other side of it, what was happening to you. Yesterday in the support group, we were sharing and talking about physical ailments that sometimes people didn't even realize they were having until after they placed their loved one. Or unfortunately, in someone who shared yesterday, she talked about until after she had her cardiac event. She thought she was just going along fine until there was the event. And then you've got to give yourself permission to feel and experience your emotions. I touched on this earlier. It is okay to cry about this. It's okay. It is okay to be sad. It's okay to get angry. We have to accept the guilt, because we're all going to have that guilt, and we're going to have some heartbreak. And like I said earlier, part of being able to name it is to be able to tame it. So letting your emotions out in a healthy way. You name them, you own them, so you can tame them, and then you make a vow to take one day at a time. That's all we can do. And with dementia, we all know sometimes we can't even do one day. We're doing 1 hour, or we're doing every 5 minutes at a time. And that's okay too, as long as we're naming it. We're naming it what it is so that we can own that. You may be hearing a lot about this right now just because of the time that we're in right now. This is considered a time of grief. We're all living in a time of grief right now, and we've got it double because we've got a loved one that has dementia. We're already living in a state of grief, and now we can't see them if they're placed. Or maybe they're with us at home and we're having we're used to going to a day program and we can't go right now. So we're all kind of living in these different stages of grief, and we need to be able to call it what it is. So the next one I've got is being able to shield yourself. Once you've made that decision, limit your exposure to those that make you feel insecure or who question your decision. There are always going to be those who think that they know better what you should do for your loved one. And unfortunately, many times it's family who's doing this. And lots of times it's family who's off in another state, who are nowhere around, who do not understand why we made the decision that we had to make. So if they make you feel anything less than confident, protect yourself from them, shield yourself from them. you don't have any room in your life, and you have no time for negativity from anyone, that is the last thing that you need. You are a caregiver that knows when to say when. That is positive self-talk. I knew when to say when, and it was time. And then give yourself some time to focus on yourself. You've been doing the job of an entire nursing facility. If you think about that, because we will have people say to us, or to me and Jamie, or to other people who work here, I don't know how you do it. Well, we come in at a certain time, and then we go home at a certain time. And we've got tag teams. We've got 140 people who work here, and you were doing the jobs of 140 people all by yourself, because you were fixing the food, and you may have been doing the therapy with them, and you were doing the ADLs with them, the activities of daily living, and you were doing the laundry, and you were doing everything by yourself. Take some time every day to nurture yourself in some way. You need time to regroup and to get back on your own feet after you've placed your loved one. It is a marathon, not a sprint, this disease is. So invest in yourself. And this is finding one of those positive ways to work through those emotions. One of the very best things you can do is journal, because when you're writing it down, you're owning it, you're owning those feelings, and you're getting out. And nobody else ever has to see it. I've got a journal sitting right here. I journal even right here at work, where you can get out. I am so mad about. I'm really afraid that. And you're putting it down on paper. Reading, going and getting yourself a pedicure or manicure, sitting outside, getting into prayer and Bible study, starting to do some yoga, some type of exercise. And I've had many of you tell me on our support group calls that that was one of the best things you did, was just kind of start to move again. Meditate, sleep. What's that? That's another one that we hear a lot after placement is, do you know that I actually have slept now for 5, 6, 7, 10 hours in a row without waking up, because I'm not having to sleep with one eye and one ear open? And you start to get sleep and you start to get rest. Taking a vacation, allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to go somewhere, even if it is for a long weekend. That's one of the best things you can do, is to give yourself that permission to take a trip, to go do something, or to go be with some family. It's time to refocus and become your loved one's wife, husband, daughter, son, friend, etc. again. Because at home, before placement, most of the time, if somebody were to ask you, who are you? Lots of times that answer is, I'm a caregiver for my husband. I'm a caregiver for my friend. You didn't say I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, you said I'm a caregiver. So your identity had become being a caregiver. And with this disease being progressive and being terminal, we want to get back to that point where we're a wife, we're a friend, we're a daughter, we're a son. And then we've got to forgive ourselves. Yes, we broke the promise. We did. We've got to forgive ourselves. It's okay. You can do it. You can forgive yourself. You deserve that. You are worth that. Letting go of that guilt. This is all positive self-talk. You are not a bad person. You did not fail. That's some of the things you can learn about being in a support group, is when you talk to other people who can really talk through their situation, and you hear other folks and you go, oh, it isn't just me. Look at all of these other people who are in the same boat. No one is perfect. The last thing we want to do is dwell on the past, and we have all had a whole lot of time sitting at home right now, and we do not want to be dwelling on the past. With this disease especially, we've got to focus on the present, and we've got to be very, very mindful. And then challenge yourself to help others with the knowledge that you have gained. None of us wanted to go on this journey. Not any of us. We didn't want this skill set. because we all know this is a skill set whenever you're dealing with somebody with dementia, and we didn't want to know how to do this, but now we do. Use that to help other people. There are several of you that I see that are on the call right now, and I know many of your stories where some of you, you're brand new to this, some of you are right in the middle of it, some of you are getting closer to the end of it, and some of you are on the other side of it where your loved one's already passed away. And every time you come on and you share those stories, it is amazing the feedback we get from other people that go, oh, I am so glad that, and Judy, I'm going to pick on you because I can see your face right here real close. I'm so glad that Judy's sharing her stories. You know, there's people who they share their stories. They show up on programs like this. They come to support groups. You get as much out of that too. So please do that and continue to share your story. And then I wanted to end with, because I think this is very appropriate whenever we're talking about forgiving ourselves. I've got this, if you could see my wall, which it looks like I'm sitting outside, but I'm not. But on this wall that's behind me, I've got crosses, and all of them have the Serenity Prayer on it because I collect Serenity Prayers about God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And we talked about that. We cannot change the level of care that our loved one's going to need. The courage to change the things I can, and sometimes that courage means breaking a promise. And then the wisdom to know the difference in what I can and cannot change. Oh, good. We got through all of the slides. Great. That leaves us time to open up for questions or comments that anybody might have. Will the recording be posted to your YouTube channel? That's a Jamie question. Let her answer that one.
Yes. It will, yes. It might be right now that we'll need to send you a link to access it. I don't know if it'll be public, but we can send the link. We will send the link for this recording, and it'll be active for so many days, and then we will move it over to our YouTube channel. Either way, we'll make sure you get the link for both of those if you need them.
And then we will also, like Jamie was saying, we'll send you these slides, and we encourage you to share them with your families, with your friends. Sometimes just sending somebody something gives them a chance to look it over when maybe at another time, maybe they're not as open to hearing it from you or to hearing it from somebody else. But sometimes if they get it and it's got a, oh, this came from a place that maybe knows what they're talking about kind of thing, that they might read it. And I tell you, it's amazing the calls and emails we get from people who had been sent information from family members. If you think of something later, you've got our emails, you've got our phone number. Please don't hesitate to call either one of us and let us know. Also, if you think of other ideas for programs, reach out to us with that, and we will put one together just like we did this one. And Jamie will get this sent out this afternoon. Did anybody have anything else? Okay, here's something. So the question says, Mom was in assisted living, but with COVID, I moved her back in with me. I don't want to move her back there right now, but she needs something during the day while I'm at work. Do you have suggestions? Jamie, do you want to send or talk about what we did yesterday, even with support group? This exact same question came up.
Right, yeah. So most people are having, I guess, struggling with this because a lot of our, what we were using, like a day program or support groups for our loved ones, are not available right now, right? So we did send out, and I will include it in the email, it was 103 things to do with a person with dementia, a list of it. And Holly said yesterday, 90 of them may not pertain to you, but 13 may pertain to you, or you can use throughout the day. And I'll also send some information about activities for people living at home with dementia that are done every day through Dementia Friendly Fort Worth. So they have this whole program. Every day you get on, you do an activity. It's for people with dementia and their loved ones. You can join in too. And they record those also. So if you aren't able to join at the time, you can always see past ones or do it later in the day. And they also do their dementia-friendly church services. And they record those as well. So we'll make sure you get that information.
Yeah, and I've looked at what Jamie sent out yesterday, and just make sure you scroll through all of it, because there's a lot of information. I didn't realize all that Dementia Friendly Fort Worth had going on right now also. And then, like she said, she's going to attach this paper that's just 103 things to do. And some of them you just have to make work for you. And like she said, 90 might not work, but next week one of them might work that wasn't working this week. So, but it's an idea of things that you can do. Did anybody have anything else they'd like to ask or add?
I just want to say something really brief. This is such an important topic, and the person for whom I was a primary caregiver, we're coming up on the 2nd anniversary of her passing at James L. West. And what I realize is that how important it is for us to look at the promise and what we assumed about the promise, and then the reality that we have faced. And that's so important to get that straight. When you think about that we didn't do something wrong, or, if only I'd had all this foreknowledge. So I just want to make that comment. I thought this was a beautiful presentation today. Thank you. And very, very timely.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this kind of goes along with the Serenity Prayer, but another caregiver, this was a few months ago, shared this with me, and it's like his mantra, right? He says, accept what is, let go of what was, and have faith in what will be. And I enjoy that a lot.
Yep. That's a slide I need to add to this.
Well, I wanted to add that I think struggling with that grief, even when you may not have made the promise, there's still so much grief related to just accepting the fact that this person that you love so much is just changed in a way, and you have no control over it, and you have no way of bringing them back to the way that they were with medication and treatment. And so I think this particular meeting that you're hosting, this little short bite for us today, and this reminder that this is part of the process, not just the promise, it's also just the acceptance. There comes feelings of guilt and other things that come with that you want so much more for them than it's out of your control to give.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, that's right. And it is ongoing. It just goes on and on. And we do get, you use that word acceptance, with we kind of get to this point of acceptance that this is what it is at this point, and then darned if they don't go and they make a turn, and we go into that next stage, and that can throw us back into that denial. It can't be that now they don't know what a fork is, much less use a fork. And that's why we stay in kind of a constant state of grief, because we are watching these changes. And I'm so glad that you pointed that out, Kristen. Whether we made the promise or not, it's understanding as we go through the cycle of this disease to be very gentle with ourselves and to not be beating ourselves up. It's hard to do. And it's constant, and it's every day. And sometimes it's every minute of every day. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Well, thank you very much. We are right at time. We appreciate you being on here. If you're interested in any of the things we've got coming up next week, we also, Jamie, I'm guessing, are getting ready to have our August calendar go out, because we have got a lot in August. So we will get that out.
It went out Saturday, but you'll get another one.
Great.
Like this Saturday.
So everything with all of our upcoming August, we've got some new programs coming out, like Jamie said. So trying to meet the needs in this very different and changing world. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank y'all.
We appreciate y'all being on here. Bye-bye.